My dear students, I welcome all of you to my online class. I am Ujjwal Kumar Haldar, lecturer in English, Govt.suhrawardisollege College, Pirojpur. Today, I am going to take a class for the students of English Honours second year. In my previous class, I discussed Victorian Age, and in my previous class I discussed the characteristics of Victorian Age. Today I like to discuss some important terms and I like to highlight some important traits of this age or period. Before going to discuss some important traits of this period, we must know or we must have idea about Victorianism. What do you mean by Victorianism, or what is Victorianism? Before going to discuss the some important traits of this age, we must discuss Victorianism. Actually, Victorianism is a term which is often used with the reference to the reign of Queen Victoria, and this term also extended beyond the Queen's reign from 1837 to 1901. Historians distinguish early, middle and late Victorian England. Under Queen Victoria, Britain transformed by industrial revolution became the world's leading imperial power and its most interesting country. The authors of the age try to focus the rapidly changing age, the term of Victorian literature. The authors of this age try to focus the characteristics of the Victorian age in their works. Actually, Victorian age is an age of numerous changes. There is nowhere where we don't find changes. Actually, there was a change in politics, there was change in philosophy, there was change in revolution, in religion. Everywhere, every sphere of the Victorians age, there was change, and all the traits, all the changes were got important places in Victorian literature. And among the Victorian poets, Lord Tennyson was important one, and actually he represents in his work the faith and doubt of the Victorian people. Matthew Arnold also laments the loss of value. In fact, the moral history of the age is reflected by the authors of the age. The moral history of the Victorian age is particularly reflected by the authors of this period, of this age. In other words, we can say that social, political and religious ideas of the Victorian age are remarkably expressed or greatly expressed in the literature of the Victorian era. So, from this discussion, we can say that Victorianism is a term which actually refers to the tendencies of the Victorian era. What does it refer? Actually, it refers to the tendencies of the Victorian era. And in other word or another word, we can say that Victorians are called the Victorian. Why? Because they are concerned with the issues of their times and not with the issues of their ages. They are called Victorians. Why? Because they are concerned with the issues of the times, not with the issues of their ages. So, I think from this discussion you have got enough idea about the term Victorianism and who are called the sages of Victorian age. We must know that. Or what do you know about the moral history? About the moral history. Let us now try to discuss it. Actually, the Victorian thinkers are called the sages of the Victorian age. Of Victorian age. The Victorian thinkers are called. The Victorian thinkers are called the sages of Victorian age. The influence of the Victorian thinkers are great on Victorian literature. The influence of the Victorian thinkers, the influence of the Victorian thinkers are great on Victorian literature. Actually, if we observe or if we try to discuss or analyze or have a clear idea over Victorian literature, then we find that the Victorian thinkers had great impact on Victorian literature, and their works are an intellectual criticism of the age. The writers of the Victorian periods or Victorian age who composed lot of works, actually their works are nothing but intellectual criticism of Victorian age. Therefore, the Victorian thinkers such as Thomas Carlyle, John Stuart Mill, Newman, Charles Darwin and Matthew Arnold require some attention. That means the famous persons or the writers or the poets already I have mentioned, they should be given a special attention. That means we must give focus on their literary works. If we want to know clearly about Victorian literature, then our priority should be given on their works. Arnold believed that poetry would replace religion. It was the earnest belief of Matthew Arnold that he would think poetry would replace religion, and he considers poetry as a criticism of life. What is poetry? According to Matthew Arnold, poetry is nothing but the criticism of life. Like Arnold, the other thinkers of the Victorian age try to focus the spiritual crisis and erosion of values of the Victorian age. Actually, in Victorian period, there was spiritual crisis and erosion of values, and Matthew Arnold tried to focus those things in his works, in his poetry, in his writings. And at the end of the 18th century, with the progress of science, people became skeptic that they did not have serious faith or complete faith in religion. Actually, they became doubtful. Why? For the advancement of scientific inventions or the progress of science, and a conflict, as a result, a conflict between science and religion appeared. In Victorian period, we find a conflict between science and religion. Actually, religion did not have single or overall impact on the minds of human beings. Rather, it is scientific invention which had also the same impact like religion on human mind, and as a result, a conflict arises. New political and philosophical theories are published. Not only that, a conflict was found between science and religion. Actually, new political and philosophical theories are published, and that is why science lost its monopoly. Science lost its monopoly because people become divided. Over the faith of science and religion, and we find that rapid changes took place both internally and externally, and this is very important. If we know the Victorian literature, then we must know this. Already we have found that a conflict is found between science and religion, and new political and philosophical theories is published. That is why church lost its monopoly and rapid changes took place both internally and externally. Newman started a new movement that is known as Oxford movement, which renewed the idea of traditional Christianity. Newman tried his best to restore the faith of human being on religion, on or in religion. That's why he began or started or initiated a movement that is called Oxford movement. And the thinkers of the Oxford movement were the first to observe and understand the effects of industrial capitalism, scientific theories on social and personal life. Therefore, in their work and in art and literature, they try to show the significant currents of English national culture. So, we have got some idea about moral history of Victorian age or Victorian period, and now I am going to discuss something important, that is called Victorian compromise. Victorian compromise, we must know it, because in Victorian period we find turmoil between science and religion, conflict, and that's why a compromise was essential or important. And for this reason, in order to make a check and balance between science and religion, some writers tried the level-based, and in this case we can mention the name of a famous writer, Alfred Lord Tennyson. So, I am going to discuss Victorian compromise. The Victorian age doesn't mean precisely or actually or rightly the years during which Queen Victoria reigned. Victorianism means an attitude to life and society. Too many influences work on the Victorian age. In Victorian period, we find a lot of influences, and those influences work on Victorian age. Actually, it was an age of change, a change of internal and external changes. It was a change of internal and external changes. The literature of the society shows the growing social consciousness. In Victorian period, the literature of Victorian period we find growing social consciousness. The political turmoil, the industrial revolution, the life of working class people, the political, intellectual and philosophical debate were reflected in the works of the authors. These things are very important. So, you must keep in mind the political turmoil, already I have mentioned it, the industrial revolution, the life of the working class people, the political, intellectual and philosophical debates. There was a debate, and three things were interrelated with this debate: political, intellectual and philosophical debate are reflected where? In the works of the Victorian writers or authors. Therefore, we can say that there has been an attempt on the part of the authors to bring about a compromise between the various forces of the Victorian era. If political turmoil goes on and there was a industrial revolution and there was a debate among politics, intellect and philosophy. That is why it was very important, or it was very much necessary for the people of the Victorian period to make a compromise in order to avoid this turmoiling situation, and that is why some poets came forward, and among them Tennyson is important, or among those authors, poets, writers, we must should remember Tennyson, Alfred Lord Tennyson. Life was easy for those who had many power and wealth. So, during the Victorian period, it was essential to make a compromise between the rich and the poor. There is a conflict between the rich and the poor, because life was easy for the people of the upper class society who had enough money, wealth and power. On the other hand, millions of people suffer from poverty. They were the lower class people of the society, and they could not enjoy their rights deliberately or appropriately, and that is why there was a distinction between the rich and the poor, between the oppressors and the oppressed. The Victorian society witnessed class consciousness and that is conflict between the rich and the poor. Tennyson's poetry adequately show the various tendencies and compromises of the Victorian era. It was Alfred Lord Tennyson who tried to make a balance everywhere. There was a compromise between democracy and kingship. It seems that people accepted democracy because people did not like autocracy, and there is a compromise between war and peace, a revolution and reconciliation. In order to keep harmony in the society, or in order to maintain peace in the society, a compromise was essential between war and peace, between revolution and reconciliation, and Tennyson gave priority over these things. And the most glaring or mentionable conflict that Victorian age witnessed is the conflict between science and religion. The discovery of scientific theories brought doubt in the minds of the Victorian people. During Victorian period, a lot of scientific discoveries, the discovery of lot of scientific theories had great impact on the minds of the Victorian people, and that is why they were losing their faith in religion, and as a result a conflict was growing between science and religion. The Victorian people suffered from faith and doubt as there was a turmoil, there is a conflict between science and religion. That is why the people of the Victorian people, the people of the Victorian age or the Victorian people suffered from faith and doubt. However, of all the Victorian authors, of all the Victorian authors, Tennyson is called the poet of Victorian compromise because in his poetry we find both the characteristics of the age. In his writings, in his literary works, he tried his level best to discuss both the characteristics of the age, and he tried to bring about a compromise between science and religion, and his poems particularly represent or present the conflict between science and religion, the material advancement and spiritual crisis of the age. Actually, there is a crisis between the material advancement and spiritual crisis, and that was conspicuously found in the writings of Tennyson. And in this case we can mention some of the famous poems written by Tennyson, and they are particularly Lustily Hall, Ulysses, Tithonus, In Memoriam, etc. These poems express the idea of compromise between the various issues of the Victorian ages, and that is why it is Alfred Lord Tennyson who is called who is regarded as the compromiser of Victorian age. Today I like to stop here, and I think all of you will study at your home, and if you go through the Victorian age of English literature, you will find that this age is remarkable for many reasons, and already I have mentioned two things: the term Victorianism and Victorian compromise, at the same time model history. And in my future class or next class I will discuss something such as Oxford movement, pre-Raphaelitism, 1990s, etc. So go on your study and stay home, stay safe. Thank you all.